the lands. It's proposed to be located within an existing farm building. That is 6,000 square feet. The lands are designated prime agricultural and zoned agricultural. The criteria for on-farm diversified uses have been met for the most part, other than the size of the building, which exceeds the 2,500 square feet maximum. So they need relief for that. And also the owners have indicated that they'd like to increase the off-site employees to 5, and the home industry provisions allow only 2. So the zoning bylaw has, the draft bylaw is in the agenda package, and it does reflect the increase in employees. We have no concerns with the application, and just a heads up that site plan approval may also be required at time of building permit for the upgrades to the building.
Thank you, Linda. And the EBs are here, so do we have, is Edgar going to be speaking, or is Carl Eby going to be speaking? Let's go up to the podium at the front there and speak, sir. And just hit the button and state your name, please.
Edgar Martin.
Go ahead, sir.
So, as Linda mentioned, just looking to move a site fabrication business to that location.
All right. Anything further? All right.
Not
Thank you very much,
really.
sir. Are there comments from those in attendance? Please indicate so and state your name and address for the record when you do come up. First, here in support of the zoning amendment. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in support of the zoning amendment? Anybody here wishing to speak against the zoning amendment? Any questions from council then? Not seeing any? Sorry, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, I'm just wondering if Linda might be able to tell us if they're already using this facility for the proposed use that they're looking to achieve here. Like, is it already being run out of the location?
Not that I'm aware of, but you can ask the applicant that.
As mentioned, I want to move the business there, so it's running out of a different location at this point.
Any further questions? Then this public meeting is now concluded. Thank you for attending. Have the resolution here moved by Councillor Woodham, second by Councillor Ottens, that Township of Mapleton Council received for information plan report ZBA 2025-01, 6601 Yatton Side Road, concession 3. Anything further from council? All in favor? That's carried. We'll move on to the next public meeting. This is another public meeting under the Planning Act to hear comments from the public and agencies and to give consideration to application ZBA 2024-14 for proposed zoning bylaw amendment and proposed draft plan of subdivision 23T-24004. Subject lands are located at lots 1 to 8, 10, 11, 25 to 32, and part lots 9 and 33, part Church Street, Alexander Street, Napier Street, and Hannah Street, and concession 1, geographic Pilkington Township, Alma. Purpose and effect is to rezone the lands from future development to unserviced residential, natural environment, and open space to accommodate a stormwater management facility. The amendment will also address reduced lot area and frontage requirements. The amendment is required in order to facilitate the proposed draft plan of subdivision. The applications for draft plan of subdivision and zone amendment will result in the creation of 16 single-family residential lots that will be on private septic and well. A stormwater management and park area are also proposed as part of the overall plan. Mr. Clerk, statutory requirements, please.
Thank you, sir. Staff can confirm that property owners, Mapleton staff, and agencies were provided with required notice. Proper postings were completed. Inside the agenda package, you can see comments from RJ Burnside Engineers, Source Water Protection, GRCA, and from a resident, Heather Smith of Queen Street. There's also a second submission from Heather Smith, to which council would need a motion to receive.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Linda?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm just going to lay the foundation of what this proposal is, and my understanding is the applicant's professionals are here to give further information and answer questions. So right now, this is just a public meeting to review the application for a 16 residential lot draft plan of subdivision and the associated zone amendment application that will come after this draft approval is in place. The proposal is for 16 single-family dwelling lots on private septic and well. We pre-consulted with this property owner a couple of years ago and provided our requirement for the various studies that would be required as part of the review with their formal submission, which has been submitted, and it's listed in my report, all the reports that have been provided to date. Our staff have done their technical review of all the studies and provided their comments, which are attached for your information as well. From a planning perspective, the property is zoned zoned future development and it's designated hamlet. The lands are all located within the existing hamlet of Elma. This isn't a hamlet boundary expansion. The lands are already within the boundary. This is strictly a plan of subdivision. So the lands are permitted to have the residential development on them under the hamlet designation. There's no official plan amendments required to accommodate this development. Most of the studies that have been submitted have been reviewed, as I said, and peer-reviewed by our technical team and our engineers, and comments have been provided. I'm going to highlight the main issues that have come up are nitrate load related to the septic systems on the property. That has to be further addressed and looked at and reviewed together with our engineers and the applicant's engineers. GRCA has also raised a few concerns with some of the stormwater management, and that also has to be further reviewed with the applicant and their professionals. That's all I'm going to say on the matter now, because I think it's important to hear from the public and the applicant's professionals on any comments they might have. Just want to again reiterate that it is just a public meeting. We're not looking for solutions at this point. We just want to hear what everybody's comments, concerns, what they're against, what they're concerned about, and then we will regroup and review all the reports and all the comments and make any changes that are required in order to move this forward. And it will come back to council at a later date with a recommendation report explaining how all the concerns have been addressed, and a list of conditions that will go forward to the county for final approval if it gets to that point.
Thank you, Linda. At this time, we can hear from Exact Construction or the applicant. I don't know, Exact, are you going to speak then?
Well, this is Exact Construction, but I'm the planner, so.
Okay, go ahead and state your name, please, and who you're from.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Chris Kurowski, and I'm a land use planner, and I'm helping Van Harten surveying with this application, and a number of other consultants are also involved. As Linda pointed out, this application has two components. One is a zoning bylaw amendment. The other is for draft plan approval for a plan of subdivision on the lands, which are about 20 acres or so, triangular shaped, as you see, sort of the southwest corner of Elma. And the key thing with respect to moving forward is that we do not need an official plan amendment because these lands are already designated for this type of growth. They're designated as hamlet, and as is the rest of Alma. And the development that will ultimately occur on these lands will look very much like all of the rest of the residential development in Alma. The owners are here, Mr. and Mrs. Van Leeuwen, who are behind Exact Construction. And Linda also mentioned that we've been at this for a couple of years. We did have a checklist of technical items to look at, which we've done and submitted hydro-G, geotech, stormwater, preliminary details regarding septic systems, all to basically support the application, to confirm that it's technically feasible. From a planning perspective, it's kind of a go because we're in the hamlet, but before you can actually commence development, obviously there's things to be looked at and all the technical items to confirm. So we just received the comments from your engineer, Burnside, last Friday, I think. And, since then we've had a look and had a preliminary meeting with our consulting team that includes our engineer, our hydrogeologist, geotech guy, our environmental consultant. And, the take on the comments is that, they're generally what you would expect to see at this point in the process. Nothing really jumping off the page. Groundwater came through as, something to be properly figured out loud and clear. Some other comments were from the Grand River Conservation Authority respecting the zoning on the site. The GRC wants to be sure that the stormwater area and lands within the floodplain are properly zoned as a natural environment zoning, which we will ultimately do. Groundwater, just in terms of availability was raised as an issue. We have looked at that, and based on the preliminary work that we've prepared, we believe that we're in pretty good shape. Notwithstanding that, the game plan at this point is to take the list of comments that we've got and first of all meet with the township, with the township engineer and with the Conservation Authority, just to clarify and understand that, they properly reviewed what we've already submitted. And if there are gaps, identify those gaps, and then we will be preparing a supplementary report that will point by point respond to each of the comments that have been raised. So when we're back here next, and hopefully it won't be too far into the future, we will have all the answers, and hopefully the township agrees and the engineers agree with what the work that we've done, and we can then move forward. So beyond that, I didn't really have anything much more to say about it. It's a pretty obvious little project, and obviously the province is keen on promoting additional residential dwelling units, and the upper tier provincial planning directs that the type of growth that we're talking about should be directed to either urban areas or hamlets or things like that. So this is the proper spot for it, and from here on in, we're just really going to be confirming the work that we've already prepared and augmenting that as necessary based on our discussions with your engineer and the Conservation Authority. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a few minutes. So.
Okay.
This time we'll go to the public, and I see there's quite a few people here. So this piece of property has gone through a lot of transitions over the years since Manny and I have been sitting at the table, and some of the council members here as well. It was going to be a seniors residence at one time, and it was looked at housing, and now we're at housing again. So this is the first time that, for those here, this is the first time that this council has had this presented to us. So we've read up on it, we have done all that information. We would love to hear from the people here today. We've got a lot of submissions that were given to us. Heather, we got Heather's submission, quite lengthy submission on the water, and we appreciate that submission you've provided us, and it's very important. One thing I want to mention is that, you know, this property is, they said private septic and well, that's the way it will be. We're not looking at putting in a community-wide water and wastewater system. That would cost quite a bit of money that we don't have to spend right now. We're still working on, you know, Moorfield and Drayton's water system, which is $30-40 million. We can't afford another 20 to go to do Alma. So right now, it's all, this subdivision is private septic and well. So we'd love to hear from the public. We're going to hear from those that are in support of it first. So we have anybody here that wishes to speak in support of this? And I know we have people that want to speak, and maybe not against it, but certainly bring up your thoughts at this public meeting, and we certainly want to hear those. So if one at a time, we can go to the microphone and just state your name and your address, and we will listen to what you have to say about this subdivision and what you're worried about. So go ahead.
Yeah, there we go, eh? Yeah. Okay, Harvey Miller from Alma. I was just wondering how this is going to affect our wells. Like, you got another 16 houses going to be pumping water, you know, down the taps and showering and that. And I know the last subdivision that went in, our water downgraded big time, eh? You know, and I know you had to do a few wells for that, like the Muir subdivision and that there, you ran a few of them dry and stuff. And I'm kind of worried because they are on the high point of the hill there too, eh? And another thing is the storm water. Are you going to drain it all down? Because if we get a winter like this, or the way our rains have been coming, you know, like that's quite a downfall. Like I know I've been doing municipal sewers and stuff for a long time too, eh? And, you know, you get that down, and if you pump it into the little creek down there, you got a real problem with your flooding and that too, eh? Because they are in the highest part of the town there, eh? So that's all my concerns is the well, or if there's going to be a guarantee that they look after our wells if they do go sour, or, you know, that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. We got Linda, did you have any comments for that right now? Okay, the applicant, do you have any comments to that?
I think, Mr. Mayor, that, I mean, we have looked at it, and we believe we should be okay, but, you know, respectful of the comments that we've received, we will revisit that, and both on the storm pond and the outlet and how all that is going to work, the channel. The way I reviewed the material and the way I interpreted it, I mean, it should be a bit of an improvement in terms of drainage, I think. And we will only be able to put a number of lots in that there is capacity in the ground to accommodate. So, you know, that will be one of the things that we confirm when we go back to the drawing board.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir. State your name and address after you push the red button.
Nick Schreier, 31 Peel Street West in Alma, the corner of Church and County Road 17. My concerns are also about our wells. We actually have a shallow well, and I'd be kind of concerned on what the impact would be. I'm not against the subdivision, but if it does have an adverse effect on my well, how will that be dealt with, kind of thing. The other thing, I did read the hydrogeological assessment, and there is one section there that said that the water sample they took, though not potable, exceeded the Ontario Drinking Water Safety Quality Standards. So I don't know if it's going to be reassessed, or it could kind of indicate it was a sampling error, but I was just wondering on that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Jason.
I'm Jason Turrell, live at 15 Alexander Street, corner of Queen and Alexander. I have several concerns with this property, being that my house is on a floodplain. In the last, my 25 years of living in Alma, in the last 10 years, I've had the water go 8 inches up the doors of my house with a drainage ditch, the tributary to the Grand that runs the length of my property. In weather like we just had with the big melt, I don't get any sleep because I am pacing up and down, watching the creek run high. And there is more times than not that is within inches of overrunning the banks. My property is below both Alexander and Queen Street as far as grading goes. When you guys run the grader down, you actually make the road higher than my road, and the water flows right into my driveway and then runs right into my garage at my house. And like I said, in the last 10 years, 2 floods to the tune of over $100,000. You know, so I don't know what the plan is for any kind of drainage. I know when the people built the house 2 doors up from me, they put an 18-inch culvert in. I raised my concern to this township, and they said, I have 12-inch culverts running in my property, and they're like, if you have a problem and it floods and floods your basement, you have to sue your neighbor. And I'm like, I gotta sue my neighbor? You can only put 5 pounds of crap in a you can't put 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bucket, right? So we got 12-inch culverts. You're running an 18-inch culvert from the house up there. The grading is gonna be all redone, and now you've got that flowing into that creek. And we also have a French drain, not on the back of my lot, but my neighbor's lot. And even just this last weekend, there was over 1.5 feet of water in that French drain, and it went away, which is on that land. So if they take that French drain out, we not only have water flowing in the ditch, we have it flowing up the other side of our properties as well. So I don't know what your plan is for Alexander Street, being that it is gravel. I had heard rumors that it's going to be paved, but even at that, the grading is above what my property is. So like I said, I don't sleep when it's like this and the river's running high. So with this 16 homes, I'm not gonna be able to sleep at all, you know, and it's cost me $100,000 for 2 renovations. I don't have flood insurance anymore, so, because I'm so close to that ditch. And it is a big concern, right, as you all know.
Thank you, Jason. We've taken note of those concerns of yours. Anybody else? Yes, please.
I'm Heather Smith, and I live at 31 Elm McQueen Street, south. I'm just going to point out that I did submit additional information that's not on the agenda. And one of the things I wanted to point out was that the observation wells, there was none above County Road 17. There was only a few done below County Road 17, and there may be water level differences between the 2 locations. And the observation wells were only observed for a couple of days. Okay, so I don't want to, read my whole submission. All I want to do is point out a few highlighted things. The province mandated that Central Wellington population has to double. So this is the service population, that people are on water and sewer. It's going to double from 2016 to 2051. Central Wellington expects that their existing wells are going to meet demand up until 2031 to 2036, and that by then they're going to have new wells. At least 2 of the new wells are probably going to be between Salem and Alma. And a presentation was made to this council in 2020 that showed the expected water level drops in Alma because of the new wells. And that was 2 to 4 meters, depending on which part of town you were in. Can we show the diagram of that by any chance? That one diagram is in the agenda.
We're not able to do that
agenda
right
on
now.
there? No? Okay, that's fine. So it's in the agenda. It might be another 1 to 2 years before we know the actual location of the wells. And Kyle Davis, if he's here, he could probably answer a question about that. I think most people in Alma are unaware of these changes that are coming. Just give me a moment, please. One. And I'm very disappointed that the commenting agencies on this proposal haven't mentioned anything about that foreseeable threat. This is not that far down the road that this is going to happen, these developmental changes in Center Wellington. And I'm counting on the council, well, I'm counting on the township and the county councils to take a high level of care when deciding how many homes can be put on that property. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any more development at all in Alma. I'm just saying I expect the council and the officials to make a good decision that's going to maintain the status quo of us not having to be hooked to municipal water. I think water quantity is a big issue. And I hate to see, 15 to 16 new houses, up to 16 new houses being built, and then in a short period of time after those homes being built, those people start having problems and have to look to the council for a remedy, and the existing people that are in Alma having to look for a remedy. And what would that remedy look like? It would probably take years for us to get some action. If there was a serious drop in our water levels, if it somehow affected how the septic tanks were operating, it would be up to the citizens to go to the council and ask for a remedy. And I'm not so sure that would be a very easy thing to do, and we would expect there would be a very lengthy process in convincing Central Wellington, for example, to give us water, and then you have all that infrastructure time. It could be a long time before there could be a remedy for water quality. I think that's all I want to say. I've written a lot of comments, and people can read those, and you've got all the graphs.
We have it all, Heather. Thank you so
Okay.
much. And yes, with the county, as you mentioned, Kyle, the Source Water Protection, that's some of the people that we rely upon to give us information, as well as the work that's done by the engineers and the hydrological studies that they do on these properties. So very important to have those studies. We want to make sure that we don't put anybody in a situation, and that's why we're hearing your comments today, and that's why we're getting all the work done by, our engineers and the applicant's engineers, and make sure we get the right information so that we can make the proper decision on this area. Anybody else wishing to speak? Good. Just state your name and address.
Brandon Miller, 32 Peel Street, West Alma. Again, I just concerned about the well. I'm a young homeowner. You know how things are nowadays and everything else. I just purchased this home. I can't afford, if my well goes dry, to put $30,000, $40,000 into the ground to get a new well. So I'm looking for, if it's going to go empty, like if we're going to run out of water from this proposed site getting developed, I want to see if there would be compensation for us homeowners, for us around in the surrounding areas, because I hate to say it this way, but we were there first. It's our, like, I've been here in Alma my whole life, and I love the town. I'm not opposed to seeing future growth. I think it's great. It's whatever, but if it's affecting the residents of our nice little hamlet that we have and affecting the water and everything else, I just want to make sure that there's rectification and something actually gets done about it. So that's all I have to say about that. So
Thank you,
thanks.
Brandon. It seems like there's a lot of questions here when it comes to well water, and we certainly have all those notes down to make sure that we study that thoroughly. Anybody else?
Liam Smith, 7 Church Street. I just had a concern / wonder about if there was any thought put into the sidewalk coming down on 17, if we're going to lengthen that, and then you have kids going to school, walking down, people never slow down coming down that hill. So you have families coming out of that subdivision, trying to get into town. Just a thought.
Linda, you have comments on that, please?
The township engineer is recommending that sidewalks be extended to the opening of the subdivision along the county road.
Thank you. Anybody further?
Hello, I'm Wes Huizinga. I live on 4 Hannah Street. Two big concerns for me. Water, number one, like everybody else here. I've seen my well in the last 15 years drop roughly 5 feet. I've had to put piping down to draw water from a lower point in the last year. This winter's probably been a little better for water levels, but it is definitely a concern. The other concern was just, I was curious if any planning had been done on road infrastructure for access points with the irregularly shaped triangle. I was curious what access points were planned that way. That's pretty much all I have.
Linda, do you have an answer to that, or?
Through you, Mayor, I'm not sure which area they're talking about.
Your access points, sir, are you talking about from where to where?
Coming down to what road?
With the main entrance to the 16 homes is what you're discussing? Off of County Road 17
Or Church Street,
or Church Street?
sorry. No.
Okay, no.
No,
right.
so through you, Mayor, those road allowances that are there that are not developed have been sold to Exact Construction, and they now form part of the subdivision, and Church Street is going to be reconfigured. I don't know if the, online there, if we can move up, you'll see the actual plan of subdivision. If you move up a couple slides in the report, there you go. So that is how the road patterning will go. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Okay, next person, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Leanne, and I share a well right on Alexander Street. Barda, B-A-A-R-D-A. We do share a well with my neighbor, and when you put in the subdivision east of us, we did notice a significant drop in our water. So we are majorly concerned about that. We're also wondering, does the Napier Road does not come across, correct? Napier is the one. Okay, it's not there, but on another one that does show it, that it is part of it. So if that doesn't, because there is a large creek that runs through there that has a lot of runoff. Our other concern is we are on the bottom end with a lot of runoff, a lot of snow will be pushed that way. And how is that in regards to contamination to the riverbed and to the wells that are down there?
All right, so we've taken note of that for commenting and for suggestions. Thank you.
Because you're also putting a lot of sewage. Is every lot going to have a septic and weeping bed?
That's what the plan is.
So then you're going to run it right down in towards the river?
Run what down, sorry?
All the weeping beds, are they going to be down towards the
I don't believe so.
creek?
I don't believe so. But that'll all come in the future plans when the engineers look at it.
Okay. And another thing is that the railway tracks that used to be there, it is a large barrier for wind and a lot of snow that would come over into that area if that was disrupted. So that also holds back a lot of runoff.
Okay, thank you. We'll add that to the comments. Anybody else who has not spoken yet? Anybody else who has not spoken yet? Okay, go ahead.
Noreen Schreier, 31 Peel Street West. My concern is Church Street runs along our property, and is it going to be paved as it's going to be one of the main entrances to the subdivision? How will that affect our ditch and runoff? Right now, when it's plied by the township, they overlap the ditch by a foot either side, and quite a few vehicles have ended up in our ditch or the other side of the road because they think it's road allowance and it's not. It's actually the ditch. So my concern is runoff and from the properties. Also, the main road is higher than my property, and they don't have the center of the road is high, it comes down and runs, any runoff of water runs down into my driveway and into my basement. And that's another concern with that as well. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Go ahead, Linda.
Thank you, Mayor. I just didn't get the address.
So,
30 Peel Street?
welcome, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Amber. I'm on Queen Street.
Your last name, Amber, please?
Murray,
Thank you.
M-U-R-R-A-Y. And a huge concern is the water. Our house was built without a basement for the reason of the water in the spring and during storms and things like that. We're in the flood area. I've seen that back half of the field, or bottom half, south half, whatever you want to call it, underwater for large amounts of time. Another concern on top of that is increased traffic in the neighborhoods. Small children, there's no sidewalks on the streets in Alma. There might be in the new area, but right now there's no sidewalks. Right now on Fridays, the cars all love to zoom down the roadways, and they don't stop at the stop signs. There's 4 or 5 stop signs along the way. They don't stop at any of them. There's increased traffic coming through that way is definitely a concern on top of it. There is wildlife in the river. There is fish and birds and animals and things like that, so that should be something that's taken into consideration as well. But yeah, the water is definitely number one for concern.
Thank you. I've heard a lot about water and flooding, and you're not the only ones that brought it up, and I was unaware myself that that area got a lot of flooding to it, so thank you for pointing that out to us. Anybody further that has not spoken yet? Heather, we'll go to you then. Can I just say a couple more things? You sure? Not water related? Okay. Not water related. Perfect. Just put the mic on, please, Heather.
Than just wells. Okay, so there's heavy traffic on Queen Street now, and it's worse now that they have the truck route coming through Alma. So there's a lot of people that try to skirt around the corner and come up Queen Street. And at the corner of Queen and Napier and Queen and Alexander, people don't stop at the stop signs. And, it's a narrow street. So I'm wondering, about traffic flow. There's also a lot of plant growth in that ditch. The township, there's unlimited resources. The ditch doesn't get, dredged out, I don't think annually. So that probably, the growth in the ditch maybe slows down some water. I don't know. It's something you might want to think about. I'm also concerned about no municipal communication no municipal communication to hamlets about water conservation during drought. If we lived in Center Wellington, for example, we'd be hearing all the time about, don't water your lawn and all these things. But we don't get that when we live in hamlets. I think that in hamlets, we probably use more water even than what they do in town because of the fact that yes, we are concerned because we have to protect our wells and I have to protect our septic systems, but I think we're probably a little bit more lax when we're not having to pay a monthly bill for our water. And we don't have somebody reminding us all the time about things like, you have to have your septic tank pumped out every 5 years. And you have to have, water conservation. You have to decommission your well if it's not being used. All those kinds of factors. I don't think there's enough being done on Mapleton communication about those kinds of issues. And I thought it was curious in the Burnside report that it mentioned one of the suggestions was that prospective owners be prohibited from filling pools and other similar structures with well water. Well, who's going to monitor that? Is that going to be up to neighbors to, squeal on their neighbors and say that, bylaw X says you can't be doing that? People aren't going to do that. We have things in town right now that there's bylaw infractions and nobody's doing anything about it. We don't want to be bad neighbors. The Burnside report also said about, letting prospective purchasers of the lots know about snowmobile noise because it's near the snowmobile track for the winter. Well, what about all the increased noise from the trucks? Now that we're on the truck route, that's all year round. So I thought it was pretty curious that there was mention about snowmobile noise versus truck noise. Anyway, just a few more things.
Thank you. And I know we've taken some notes on some of your comments there and of the ditch. You're talking about the cleaning of the ditch. And Jamie, do you have any comments on that ditch? Okay. So all the notes are being taken down. I saw Amy writing down some notes over there, so that's good. And some of your comments. Go ahead, sir. You got to go back to the mic, sir. This is all televised. We're on World Wide Web here. You don't know you're all starring in this reality TV show right now.
Whoop, I just shut it off again. Harvey from Elma. Yeah, I just want to say there, about the ditch and stuff down there, you get bigger water flow in there. And I've been doing roads for a long time, and that ditch is way too deep to have with no guide rails or nothing there, little kids walking to school and stuff. And it is a big safety concern there, eh? That's up to its ratio for not having a guardrail or nothing there even now. You know what I mean? Let alone for, you get a 3-4-year-old kid running down there on a bicycle and lose control, and it should be looked at. And same as Church Street there, it needs to be a lot wider if you're sending more cars down there, eh? And but that's all. I just like a little concern there, and same as the sidewalks you're saying, for the kids going to school and stuff. But it'd be nice to get the old ones fixed too, because if I get in a wheelchair, I might not get up and down there,
Well, thanks, Harvey. And we do have $100,000 in our budget. I think it's almost $100,000 each and every year just for sidewalks to improve and to replace and to add sidewalks. So that's something that we put in place back in 2019 to do our sidewalks in the entire community. So it's going to take a lot of years, though, Harvey, to get all the sidewalks done, but we're working on them. Anybody else wishing to speak again? Well, for the first time.
How are you doing, sir? Chris Amy, 46 Queen Street South. Just a couple things. Obviously, the well water. We back right onto the property. I'm not in my backyard. If I had the 1.7 million, I would have bought it and kept it as is. When we bought our home 24 years back, I believe it was, we had to sign an agreement with GRCA saying we wouldn't build within a certain setback from the creek, and it's actually called the Alma River. From my knowledge, at least a quarter of that field, from what I was told by somebody who will remain nameless, that at least 20% or 25% of that back quarter down by our house is on GRCA floodplain. 2 of the lots right now, from what I've seen, are on GRCA floodplain. I'm just wondering if that's how they're going about that. And also, we were told that we own 25 feet beyond the creek. Apparently, we're about to lose that property as well. We've been maintaining, we have a fireplace there. I'm just curious what the story is and who we talked to on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And I know the GRCA had made comments in this whole, about some of the lots being encroaching on that, I think 30 meters, I think it was, of the creek bed. So they've made comments on that, and that'll be addressed as we move forward. I have no idea about your other question about having maintained that property across. Yeah, Yeah, the surveys will fix that and see who owns what, so. But certainly GRCA has been completely involved in this process and will continue to, because, you know, we have to work closely with them. Anything further?
Just to kind of go off Harvey's point, Church Street currently is like a lane and a half wide. That's going to be the main interstate there by the looks of it. There's going to be any widening going on there. The ditches are already quite deep. The plows already blow like quite onto the lawns. So there's not much room there anyways. So.
Well, I'm going to get Jamie to answer the question when it comes to the width of a street, because he has the knowledge of how wide a street needs to be. And he's looking at me going, I don't know the answer.
Well, a couple things, sidewalks, so the tender's already been out this year for the 2025 sidewalks, and all the sidewalk along 17 is getting replaced, right up to the location of where they have recommended it be extended. That won't be this year, because that's not a municipal project. As far as the road allowance, I can't say how wide they're in town. We generally have a 20-meter road allowance. All these roads in here, in the new subdivision, in our development standards, are 20 meters, so a 66-foot. As far as the other streets, I'm not sure if they're all 66 feet, or they're 47 and a half, or 49 and a half. So I'm not sure. I can't answer that one, but the typical is 20 meters, which is 66 feet.
Perfect. Thanks, Jamie. Linda?
Just to add to Jamie's comments, the Church Street that is proposed in the subdivision is proposed at 20 meters, which is the current municipal standard. The drawing is showing the existing Church Street in Alexander at 18 meters. And a recommendation from the township engineer is that Church and Alexandra off-site, so the roads that are existing be upgraded at a cost share with the developer.
So
and the
upgraded,
township.
widened, paved, correct?
Not necessarily widened,
But
but
paved.
paved
Okay,
and
thank you.
upgraded, yeah.
Thank you. All right, anything else? Go ahead.
Jason Turrell, 15 Alexander Street, but you say why paved, so that means that you're going to increase the height of the road.
So what the planner just told me and told us was that Church Street and Alexander that are currently existing
Yes.
will be paved,
Paved.
not widened, but paved.
But paved, so that means you're putting asphalt and material on top of pre-existing stuff, so you're gonna make that road higher, even
don't-
higher.
I don't know whether they go up higher or they dig it out and they level it out with what's there, so, but Linda will speak to that.
So again, through you, Mayor, that's a recommendation from the township engineer. So that's part of the technical review that's been completed to date. We will now go back, sit down with all the professionals and figure out the best approach moving forward, and taking into consideration all the comments and concerns raised here today by the people that live in the neighborhood, and making sure that everybody's comments and concerns are addressed properly. So we don't want to see anybody's property be impacted negatively, and if there's any way we can offer improvements through this process, we absolutely hope we can do that as well.
Thank you. Anything further? All right, questions from council members then? Go ahead, Amanda.
Through you, Mayor, I believe to Linda. I have a question about sidewalks. So currently, in the report, they're saying sidewalks need to be enhanced for the safety under the Upper Grand comment that was made. That being said, the sidewalks currently that are going to that neighborhood are technically not on the side of that neighborhood's being built on. So are they considering that we need sidewalks on the other side of 17 from the corner? Because right now they end at, I believe, Alexander. And they don't go up to where Church Street would be right now.
Through you, Mayor, so the the township engineer has recommended that sidewalk on Peel Street that currently terminates at 50 Peel Street West should be extended along Peel Street West to the subdivision entrance. So that leads me to think just the existing sidewalk will be extended, and then there'll be sidewalks internally and lighting. It'll all connect.
Thank you. Anything further from council? And then on this public meeting is now concluded. Thank you for attending the public meeting, everyone. And thank you, everybody, for your comments. It's very important for us to have them so that our staff and can work with the developers to make sure we do it right. So thank you so much. I do have a resolution here. This is 6.2, Council. We do have two different resolutions. This one here is ZBA 2024-14, Proposed Draft Plan of Subdivision. Moved by Councillor Woodham, second by Councillor Ottens, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information the submission from Heather Smith, 31 Alma Queen Street South, Alma, regarding the Part 2 of submission plan 23T 24004. So we have that package that was given to us, and this is a resolution to accept that. Any questions on that? All in favor? That's carried. And the next one we have here is 6.2, again, moved by Councillor Otten, seconded by Councillor Woodham. Township Mapleton Council received for information planning report ZBA 2024-14, lots 1 to 8, 10, 11, 25 to 32, and part lots 9 and 33, part Church Street, Alexander Street, Napier Street, and Hannah Street. And this is for the subdivision plan. Again, moved by Councillor Otten, seconded by Councillor Woodham. Any questions or comments at this point? All in favor? It's carried. We have no delegations tonight, Mr. Clerk. And we move on to item number 8, and this is minutes from the committee, and we have a Parks and Rec Committee meeting that we had on March the 11th. And I have a mover here, moved by Councillor Woodham, seconded by Councillor Ottens. The Township Mapleton Council received for information the draft minutes of the Parks and Rec Committee meeting held on March 11th, 2025, and that council consider any recommendations contained within these minutes. We'll turn it over to Jamie.
Thank you, Mayor Davidson and council. We had a pretty good meeting. We gave the committee basically a parks update on present capital we're going to be doing and some operations and future capital programs like the trails enhancement and that. So we also did the 50-50 funding, and we used up all the $20,000 that we had in the budget. We were short, I think, $57, so we just rounded that one off to keep us right on the 20,000. So everything that was submitted was approved through the committee. So it was a short but very productive meeting.
Thank you, Jamie. Questions from members of council then? Go ahead, Councillor Woodham.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Davidson, just a comment. It's just nice to see that the 50-50 funding being fully used and some great projects. So kudos to the Park and Rec Committee. Well done.
Thank you. And although we reached our peak and went a little bit over, council, we might want to consider raising that funding for future years, as these projects benefit our community right across. And if we can get more people, more groups to help us to round out our community and do a 50-50 split, this is good for us. So we might want to consider raising that number up in future years. Put Patrick on notice. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor.
Through you, Mayor, just a comment. It's nice to really see that the projects are scattered throughout the municipality as well. They weren't all in Drayton or all in Moorfield or all in Alma. And it's nice to see that all these different service groups care so much about their communities that they're bringing forth these projects to do.
Absolutely. Anything further? Then all in favor? That's carried. We go 8.2, this is emergency management. We have resolution moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Woodham. The Township Mapleton Council received for information the draft minutes of the Emergency Management Program Committee meeting held on February 12th, 2025. Any questions or comments on those minutes? All in favor? That's carried. Going on to the building department. Moved by Councillor Woodham, second by Councillor Otten. The Township Mapleton Council received for information Building Department Report BD 2025-02 dated March 18, 2025 regarding the 2024 Building Department Annual Report. Mike, do you want to speak to that to us, for us, at us? Oh, absolutely, Mike. I told you I was going to put you on the hot seat, so there you are.
Okay, so 2024, a pretty good year for the building department. Above average numbers of permits. We had 334 permits issued. Construction value was lower than expected. We didn't have any large anchor projects to really pump up volume there. We've started to institute a program to track and close our stale permits that we've had, sitting around since 2008. And we closed about 100
Sorry,
of
Mike,
those.
did you say since 2008?
Yes.
Okay.
That's when we started digitally tracking all of our permits. So we now have the ability to see what permits are still open, and we're working on closing those up. Good financial year. I think we put about $150,000 into the reserve fund. And that kind of wraps up the year. Do you have any questions about year end?
We have any questions on the year-end report? Okay,
All
continue
right,
on.
so we also have the January month-end report. We had 18 permits issued in January, above average numbers again. It's expected to have increased permits this year as the new building code's rolling out April 1st. And we're continuing to see big permit numbers this year.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions on his second report? Thanks, Mike.
All right, thank you.
So I read the first resolution. All in favor? That's carried. Second one is moved by Councilor Otten, second by Councilor Woodham. Township Mapleton Council received for information Building Department Report BD 2025-03 dated March 18th, 2025 regarding permit activity for the month of January. Any questions on that? All in favor? That's carried. Moving right along here. 9.2.1, this is the Canada Housing Infrastructure Funding Joint Application. Mr. Barron.
Thank you, through your worship. Obviously, our batting average isn't very good this year for applications, so the government loves joint applications, so joint applications they shall receive. But I do think that, in all seriousness, the joint application is thinking beyond the 9 dots in the sense that and you'd be happy to hear this, Kyle, that we're really trying to focus on what we discharge into the watershed and what eventually ends up downstream. If and when we get the application approved, Wellington North can maybe reduce the amount of discharge that goes in, which allows us to maybe increase our discharge or vice versa. Well, not vice versa, but, and we could potentially make the 1,300 cubic meters a day last a little bit longer because we can expand our discharge period, hopefully. But it's quite remarkable that we're able to work together this way to not only address Wellington North's growth pressures, but ours as well, and take a holistic view of the northern part of Wellington and how we can help support both of our municipalities as well as take care of the watershed and the discharge periods and things like that. So,
Thank you. The resolution moved by Councilor Woodham, seconded by Councilor Ottens. This is lengthy hang on a minute. The Township of Mapleton Council received for information CAO Report CL 2025-01 dated March 18, 2025 regarding an application to the Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund, and that Council recognizes, understands, and endorses the CHIF aim to accelerate the construction and upgrading of housing enabling drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, and solid waste infrastructure. And further, that Council support a joint application between the Township of Mapleton and the Township of Wellington North, focused on accelerating the construction and upgrading of housing enabling wastewater infrastructure, thereby directly supporting the creation of new homes in the northern part of the County of Wellington. And further, that Council requests that Mayor Davidson obtain letters of support from MP John Nader and MP Tim Lewis, acknowledging the significance of advancing our mutual objectives and promoting increased federal investment in rural Ontario, which is essential for the growth and sustainability of our communities. All right, now that that's all said, questions, comments? Nothing? No, I'm not rereading it. And I will let council know that I've already reached out to both Mr. Nader and Mr. Lewis. And if you don't know who Mr. Lewis is, he's the MP that's over in Elmira Way in that direction. And Mandy and I have a meeting with Mr. Nader tomorrow afternoon. but they have this information already. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Davidson. Is this, will there be any delays in the application process or awarding based on elections or upcoming elections, the change of the government? Is that a concern at all?
Absolutely. We know that the staff of the federal government will continue working, but depending what happens at the end of April or beginning of May, when we expect the election to happen, we don't, when's the application due? When they expect to, do you know when they expect to put it out? Due date and then?
Yeah, so the due date is March 31st. I think they've gotten away from describing when they anticipate, because they always never, well, actually, they've never met that objective. So
okay.
they just don't put when the decision's going to be made anymore.
So we fully expect there's going to be election called, and so, yes, we have concerns about that. But the good news is that, you know, with a joint application, they're going to look at that and say, okay, these communities are coming together and working together. And if we just look back, just a few months ago, the County of Wellington and Minto did a joint application and received a lot of funding to do a road work there. So we're really hopeful that this is going to be something that, you know, they're asking for, and we're giving it to them. So we're hoping that's going to be putting us over that threshold, that line that we will get some funding out of this. Anything further? All in favor? Carried. Moving on to environmental sustainability thingamajig here. This is going on to Martin, I think. Community feedback on wind energy project procurement in Mapleton. Welcome to the Township of Mapleton.
Second time around, reporting is not as scary as the first. Yeah, so I mean, the report is in the agenda package, but I'm just going to speak to some of the highlights and then be available for any questions. Just to set the background of this report, there was a council meeting back in September of last year when there was a report on, there was an industrial wind turbine company looking into maybe developing a new project in Mapleton Township. And then there was a resolution at council at that meeting to instruct staff to go away and to actually get some feedback of what the lived experiences might have been in those last 12 to 13 years of the Conestoga Wind Energy Project, which is a larger project. So at the time, shortly after the commissioning of that project in 2013, Mapleton, like many other, I think maybe more than 150 municipalities, declared themselves unwilling to host any more projects, mostly because of the experience of how projects were brought to communities as well. But there was also, in the resolution, it had been reported that there were 11 people had reported negative health effects, and one person had to relocate at this time. And many Ontarians at the time were, as I said, were upset with the process. To set the context for these procurements, the independent electric systems operator are looking at a competitive process to really bring energy projects, because the projected needs for especially low carbon transition and electrification, they're projecting more than a 75% increase in needs. So these projects are really important. But there's a process to them, and one of the first parts of this process is this kind of pre-engagement and discussion. And usually at this time is when municipalities, if they haven't stated already, to the companies that have shown interest, that they're unlikely to move forward with that project, just to kind of save them time. So the resolution was to go and find out some more information. So I identified all the residents within 2 kilometers of the wind energy center, and sent surveys to those residents, allowing them to either to respond online or in writing, depending on their comfort levels. And in the report there, I've kind of highlighted some of the main feedback from there. Some stronger glasses, 1 second. It's great getting old. So 80% of the residents had lived there for more than 6 years already. 75% of them reported a moderate or significant visual impact on the wind turbines. 55% said they heard the turbines often, and 25% sometimes. A third of the residents located near the turbines reported health issues they believe are related to the turbines themselves. And other impacts include shadow flicker, which is the play of the sun on the blades on your house. And it also been witness to some avian and bat injury and mortality, which was all reported and studied for a couple of years after the installation. The perceptions on the planning process, 65% stated that the process wasn't fair. 70% stated that they believe that the property value had decreased, and 90% of those surveyed didn't receive any financial return from the projects. 80%, pretty much most people said they were concerned about climate change, but were unsure how effective wind power was in that mix. And 75% said that this maybe shouldn't be encouraged in this part of Ontario. So some of the main takeaways was, as part of the process, that they felt like they needed more consensus as a community when there were just individuals did benefit from this, but as a whole, they feel as though that was the process. And there was an interest in exploring other renewables, such as solar on barn roofs and other things that might be available to them from Mapleton. Thank you. If you have
All right.
any questions.
Thank you so much. The resolution is moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Woodham, that Township of Mapleton receive for information report CCC 2025-02, and that council resolve to remain an unwilling host at this time. Questions and comments then? Councillor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, to Mr. Tamlin. I really appreciate this because this is something that, it was a very contentious issue when it was first brought to Mapleton back in the day. I remember that, and I always wondered, with the health issues and all of that, what the actual results would be, so I'm glad that we've actually done the survey. I know one issue, one concern back in the day was stray voltage in livestock barns, and I don't see that mentioned here. No one obviously had problems with that, so that's good to hear. I'm grateful for this report.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would echo what Councillor Otten said. Thank you for bringing this report, Martin. You started to trigger me a little bit when you started to get back into like the historical context of windmills in Mapleton. And you could have really triggered me if you just started talking about the Green Energy Act, because we know how that really worked out. But I think what's important is that, renewable energy is the way of the future, right? So does it make sense to be throwing windmills on the best farmland in Ontario? Arguably not, right? But there's other places that could be appropriate. There's other types of renewable energy that this report doesn't say are bad, right? It's literally saying that, we remain an unwilling host like we have for a long period of time, which I'm happy about. And, thank you for bringing a report.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. We remain an unwilling host. Thank you, Martin. Moving on to the Finance Department. First up is Patrick on the capital program summary.
Thank you, Mayor Davidson. So this report is provided to give a high-level financial summary of the 2024 capital program. 2024 budget, you'll recall, included over $10 million in investments across 46 different initiatives. The vast majority of the projects fall under the responsibility of our Director of Public Works, Jamie Morgan, who does have a subsequent report this evening that'll discuss a number of his projects, so I won't steal his thunder there. Overall, 80% of the initiatives have been completed or are ongoing as the end of the year. The remaining 20% were deferred or canceled. But as the report outlines, the deferred and canceled projects represent less than 1% of the total funding, so a very small amount. Within the body of the report, we've included a graph outlining the sources of funding for the capital program. The majority of funds are sourced from capital reserves, wastewater DCs, and the Environmental Services Reserve Fund. So that underscores why we make transfers into each of those buckets on an annual basis to sustain our capital program. Overall, $10.2 million in funding was allocated and $6.8 million was spent or went out the door. The remaining $3.4 million is carried forward for ongoing projects set to occur in 2025. There was a bit of lack of clarity around that from what I heard previously here, so we tried to structure a report that makes that very clear to council and the public that that money doesn't disappear. It's in the capital program still for ongoing initiatives. So similar to the 2025 budget, this report strived to provide an updated format that provides greater detail on the sources of funding and the status of each of the initiatives. So I do want to specifically thank staff here this evening for their help in putting together this new format of reporting, and especially beside me, Jamie Morgan and Jim Gross isn't here, but the amount of information the two of them provided made drafting this report fairly easy, but here to answer any questions from council.
Thank you, Patrick. Questions? Resolution is moved by Councillor Woodham, second by Councillor Ottens. The Township Mapleton Council received for information Finance Report FIN 2025-09 regarding the 2024 capital program. All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to the next one is the annual statement of development charges summary. Patrick?
Thank you once again, Mayor Davidson. So this is a legislative requirement for every municipality to provide an annual statement of development charges and submit that to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing prior to the end of the month here. So shouldn't be a surprise to council or the community that this was coming, reaching the point where development charges reserve funds have dipped into a deficit position. That's largely due to some of the significant underground infrastructure projects that are going on. So as of the end of 2024, overall DC sat in a deficit of approximately $2 million. This further kind of helps to provide understanding of why DC charges, which were updated in the 2024 DC background study, were updated as significantly as they were. Need to rebuild those reserves from the draws that have been taken out this year. Schedule A there outlines exactly where the DC funds were allocated towards. So with council's approval, this report would be submitted prior to the end of the month to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. Moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Woodham. The Township Mapleton Council received for information Finance Report FIN 2025-10 regarding the 2024 development charges statement, and that staff be directed to submit the annual statement of development charges to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing in accordance with the Development Charges Act 1997 as amended. Questions for Patrick on this report? All in favor? It's carried. Next report is cash in lieu of parkland, and we go over to our Deputy Treasurer, Rachel.
Thank you, Mayor Davidson. So as Patrick mentioned, just continuing on with some compliance items. So we have a legislative requirement under Bill 73 to report on cash in lieu of parkland. As per the attached statement, in 2024, we collected $9,800 in fees on 7 applications, which is held in a designated account for future use. The ending balance of the Parkland Reserve Fund is in the attached report. And once again, upon council's approval, this report will be submitted to the ministry.
Thank you, Rachel. The resolution here moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Martin. The Township Mapleton Council received for information Finance Report FIN 2025-11 entitled Cash in Lieu of Parkland Statement for the year ended December 31st, 2024 to comply with legislative requirements. Questions for Rachel? All in favor? It's carried. And Rachel, your next one is Statement of Council and Committee Remuneration and Expenses.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, we have a legislative requirement under Section 284 of the Municipal Act to report on the remuneration and expenses of council and committees. Tables 1 and 2 in the report provide a detailed summary of the 2024 expenditures. Table 1 of the report shows the remuneration and expenditures for council in 2024 to be just over $164,000, which was within our allocated budget. Table 2 shows the committee remuneration and expenses of just over $4,000, and they're captured within the operating budgets for planning, parks, and economic development, all of which were within budget as well. And once again, upon council's approval, this report will be submitted to the ministry.
Thank you, Rachel. The resolution moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reid, that the statement of council and committee remuneration and expenses for the year ended December 31st, 2024 be received for information purposes to comply with legislative requirements. Questions on this report? Go ahead, Councillor Woodham.
Just more of a comment through you, Mayor Davidson, and just in looking at it, I know in previous, I mean, obviously I'm the lowest one on this report because I just started in November. But I also know that sometimes I always felt if I was higher than other councillors, how do I justify this to the ratepayers? But I just wanted to just comment of saying, this shows me that this council is active in training, is active in going and understanding, being in committees, attending workshops. It shows me that this is a council that cares and wants to learn of everything that we can. I know full well sometimes we'll try to carpool, and so then the one councillor may have a higher expense on the travel because we all carpooled with them and they got reimbursed. So hopefully that shares some light to some people who read this and say, whoa, why does some people get this and that? We're all doing, I believe, what we're supposed to do, representing you here at this table.
Thank you for that. Mr. Martin.
You forgot the best part, under budget.
Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to the fire department, purchase of extractors for stations. Welcome.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Yeah, basically, we applied for a fire protection grant, which was supposed to help with cancer prevention and decontamination for firefighters. So we went in there. We were successful on getting the grant, but it did not. I guess we were expecting more and we didn't get it. So we're just asking if the council can approve through our protective fire reserve, if it could recoup the costs of so we can put two extractors at both Moorfield and Drayton stations to help with decon and cancer prevention for our firefighters.
Okay, thank you. Resolution here is moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Martin. The Township Mapleton Council received for information Fire Department Report FIR 2025-05, and that council approved the purchase of extractors for both Drayton and Moorfield stations, and for that an additional funding of $26,500 be allocated from the Protective Services Reserve to cover the net project cost after receipt of funding through the Fire Protection Grant Program. And that grant program, you received $16,460.90. You got to love it when they add the change in there. You know, can't round it. It's got to be 90 cents in there. But so it's great that you got 16. You know, it's almost 16 and a half. I know you were probably looking for 40, but you got 16 and a half. But hey, better than nothing.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, there's some areas that got nothing. So, council, questions? Go ahead, Councilor Woodham, comments.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Davidson. Just a question with everything that's been going on with our next door neighbor, the tariffs, and is there any possibility of ensuring that it's something that's made in Canada, or is that a possibility?
Yes, so before I came here, I confirmed with them. So I got a requote. It is a little bit higher than our previous quote when we went in for the fire protection grant, but they are made in Canada. Everything that comes, is from Canada, so.
Thank you. We are pushing that here as this council and this staff, pushing more local and Canada-wide. So appreciate that. Councillor Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a casual, like an interest question around the extractors. I understand the drying takes a little while, but to process a full set of gear through the extractors, what kind of time frame are you looking at if you're out at a structure fire and you come back and need to clean gear? Is it 15 minutes? Is it an hour? Like, what kind of time are you looking at?
So basically, these extractors, they can wash up to 2 sets of gear, which takes about maybe 35 minutes. So we went with 2 extractors is because you have the outer liner and the inner liner, and you don't want them to be washed together because obviously the outer liner is going to be more contaminated than the inner liner, so you don't want them to get more dirty. And we found that whether you buy a dryer or you air dry them within the hall, there's really not that big of a difference. It is a little bit quicker air drying, but just hanging them up at the station is within 24 hours to dry or less, depending on the wind flow, I guess.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for that information. Good question on that one. Asking about these extractors. Anything further from council? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
Next resolution is 9.6.1, moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Reid, that the Council of the Township of Mapleton not support consent application B225 as submitted on the lands described as part lots 1 and 2, concession 12 Peel. And then that there are 2 options for council here. So council is going to have to choose 1 or 2 or none at all. And then there's the conditions that are on this. So I'm going to pass it over to Linda to have any comments on this before we have more discussion. I don't know, you throw your hands up like, I got nothing more to say. It's all in the report.
It's all, exactly, thank
Okay.
you. And so if you have any questions for clarification, I'm happy to answer them.
So council, questions for the planner on this? Councillor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And I'm not sure if Mr. Redmond can answer this or if the applicant can answer this, but what was the reason for the original request to have it that way in the first place? Is there a specific reason? Because it does seem logical to go with the natural formation of the geology of the lot. So I just wondered why it was originally requested to be that way.
Linda?
At this point, I would recommend that the applicant explain that because it's their justification.
Is the applicant here? This is yours. We all knew it was you, but you didn't know it was you, right? So yeah, this is yours when it comes to the lands that you purchased, and you want to separate those lands. Okay, so yeah, the question that Councillor Ottens is, why did you choose the configuration that you had started with?
Yeah, so there's a lot of thought and planning that went into this. So we just purchased the property just a couple of months ago, and obviously it was very expensive, so a lot of pre-planning went down. Like, I know Linda can probably echo that. I probably bugged her at least a dozen times. So it's a very unique property, as you can probably all see. Like, there's some landlocked agricultural land. So I approached all the neighboring farmers, had discussion with all of them about maybe getting a solution to this. They're all very interested in agricultural land that's workable. And I'm very interested in the bush, like the beautiful landscape. So that's how we came up with that, I tried to maintain as much property as I could without making the lot lines too crazy. I know, so that's, to answer your question, and that's why the lot line goes kind of with, because we wanted to make sure no prime agricultural land was affected. That, that answer your question?
Thank you. So Councillor Otten, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Other questions then from council to the applicant or to Linda? And not seeing any other questions. I see everybody on the computer looking at the two options that are there. Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like, clearly, there's just two chunks of workable land from what it looks like. I know we always try to have like regular square-looking lots is what we try to do. Would it make any sense at all to have like the farm that it's being merged with, like that blue property line, just go straight up and just square it off? I know that doesn't, and then I guess that'd be up to the property owner to figure out the ag field, like over by County Road 11. But then it's a little more square than arguably, I mean, the two options that are proposed are fairly square. The one follows the creek or whatever, but I don't know, like it's, if we're trying to square it off and make it not look so irregular, which is that the issue with the initial proposal, correct?
So there's a few, the concerns I've raised are a few. So the first one is that in being consistent with the approach when we're dealing with lot line adjustments for agricultural parcels, we usually indicate to the landowner that if you're going to do a lot line adjustment, that the retained parcel should be a minimum size to accommodate a residential use. So usually we say around 2 acres should be adequate. However, we also realize that there's times that topography or natural features might make it so that the lot might be larger than 2 acres. So we build that into it. It's not so much about the lot lines being irregular as much as the topography of the land. So in this case, the reason there's the two options is the one is closer to the 2 acre parcel. I realize it's a 7 acre parcel, but it's following a small water course. And it takes in the area that's treed as opposed to the area that's cropped, leaves that still open for the farmer that wants to purchase it. So it still satisfies that requirement that the farmer's getting all the crop farmland, and the land that's going to be developed for residents is already outside of the agriculturally used portion of the land because it's just treed. It doesn't have any natural features on it either in terms of the designation. It's just strictly a treed lot. So that was the first configuration that was suggested. And then the second one is just dividing the lands between the stream, because that to me is the bigger issue, is that the stream is a natural division of land, and either way, how the configuration that was presented by the applicant, the farmer is going to have a problem accessing a portion of it because he can't cross the stream, as is the retained parcel, the stream crosses, so the applicant's going to have an issue getting to those lands across the stream as well. So it's not that you're creating a landlocked parcel from the sense that it's an individual lot, but you are creating a landlocked parcel in the sense that the landowners can't get to certain parts of it directly because the stream divides it. So the second configuration basically is just following the stream. It's irregular, but it's following the stream, so at least there's a natural divide that's being maintained and everybody can access their lands adequately. The third reason for the change, or the recommendation to change the configuration, is that it's always also been a suggestion, recommendation that natural features are not fragmented, and that they're maintained in a single ownership to the best of the ability, like as best as we can make them. So the first option configuration keeps all of the natural environment lands in one ownership. It's going to the farmer. So you're not fragmenting the ownership of it. It's always been understood that when natural environment lands are chopped up, then there's maybe not as much care taken to preserve them, and the less owners of it, it's easier to maintain it.
Thank you, Linda. Does that satisfy your question, Mr. Martin? You still have your mic on, that's why I'm asking.
Not intentionally, kind of. Like, I would suggest like both options are almost contradictory to each other a little bit, right? Like one has the retained parcel as pretty small, which is kind of the go-to as being desirable, right? With these things. The second one opens it up to almost 29 acres. So it's a bigger parcel now already. The smaller proposal, like when we talk about access to that other piece of property over the creek and access issues, that remains the same whether the original proposal or the proposed option. So I don't know, it's kind of a mixed bag. I kind of see the original proposal and both options that are being presented as kind of all uniquely identifying kind of one particular issue.
Thank you. Other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Ottens.
I guess your intent, I'm assuming, is you wanted access to some of the natural area, right? Like the creek, like you want that to be on the part where the house is. That's sort of why you purchased this, and then you wanted to sever off a chunk so that you could, whatever, fish, four-wheel, whatever. So that was your intent for the original severance line?
Yeah, absolutely, yep.
Because yes, as Councillor Martin pointed out, anyone farming these two sections of land, you can't get from one to the other anyways. You'd have to go around regardless of how this is chopped up. So I understand what you want and why you purchased it. You'd almost be better off just keeping it as it is and just renting those pieces out.
I would love to keep the whole thing. It's just
Land rent's pretty high.
it's not affordable.
Yeah, I understand what you're doing, so you could, with option, I guess it's option 2, figure 3, there at least you would have access to the creek. It wouldn't be on your property, but you would have access to it, and you would have a fair amount of natural area, and then you could still get some income from renting that corner. It's rather large severance, but
Yeah.
it kind of gives you what you want.
I would like that, but it's just, I have a young family. It's just not in the cards, unfortunately. Like, that's why I did a lot of pre-work.
Yep.
And I got an email from the GRCA, which I thought kind of echoed it well, because I know that's a big concern, right, the GRCA. And it reads, "Hi Ben, further to our conversations, GRCA would prefer if the new lot lines were located outside the natural features. With that said, this is a lot line adjustment and no new lots are being created. There is also room outside the natural hazard features to accommodate future development for both parcels. As such, GRCA would not object to the lot line adjustment application.
Is that your initial application, where you initially wanted it? That's what they're referring to?
So I can refer to it, and I will speak to that. That was to, I don't know if you can go to my
Scroll up.
application. That was basically, this is in the email, it's basically this line going straight back.
Yes?
That's what he's talking about. But I've been in conversation a lot with the county and township. Getting the township's approval is very important to me, as when it goes to the county, right? It doesn't look good if the township is against it. So I was a little shocked to see this report. I was informed that I did present this to the township as well, the straight line back, and that was good. And then I went with Marvin Weber, the guy who I'm doing a lot line with, and the surveyor. We surveyed the whole thing, walking around out there, and it was a natural severance the way we did it. It's kind of right where there's like a nice maple syrup sugar bush there, kind of right where that line ends, and then it goes up nice. We kind of agreed on it with the two of us, like this makes sense for a lot line. It's got a lot of value to me, and it had no value to Marvin. So he doesn't want to pay for it. I don't want to sell it. It's like, why? But I was warned that that's slightly irregular looking on that side of the river. So I was prepared to see a comment on that, but I was not prepared to see what was presented today. So, and I just wanted to, because I was told that, yeah, apply for it, right? And then it can, right, apply for what you want, and then we'll discuss. So that's why we did that extra, because it made sense to me and to Marvin, and to, yeah, and as for the GRCA, they'll comment too on that, but I don't see the difference. It's still, they're both like this or that. It's both basically going right through the same hazard, so I don't know why it makes a difference of 4 acres going to me or Marvin, especially when I paid for it, so.
Yeah, thank you. When I look at your original, and I sit on the county land division committee as well, and I know we've gone through a bunch of these with some of them. And when it comes to irregular shapes, they're not always accepted. They like more rectangular squares. That's what usually gets put in place. So as I look at this one, I understand you want the creek or I don't even know how much water is in this. Is it a river? Is it a creek? What is that?
I would call it a river.
But is it really a lot of fish in there? Is it water?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah. I met with all the neighbors, just to get their blessing on it, right? And they all told me some stories about
Okay,
it, and
good.
how there's bass holes, and and then across the river was actually a big reason why we bought it. It is absolutely beautiful back there. It's like all sugar maples and cedars, and it's like a whole campsite feel. Like I could see, I have 4 young boys, and I can just see like future like church youth groups going back there. I can see it. Yeah, and I love trees. I'm a nature guy. Like it's going to be preserved and taken care of. And I know it's a heavily hunted area as well. And just the fact that I know that it's our property and we're safe to go back there is important to me too. But yeah, a lot of thought. It wasn't a quick whim here. It was a lot of thought and pre-planning. I would really appreciate get the township's blessing on it.
Thank you. So as I'm looking at this and I see where you're coming up out of County Road 11 and you're crossing over the river, there's that bush just after the field that's off of County Road 11, why didn't you take that bush into consideration as well and just take it right around and then square it off, as Councillor Martin had said, right from the other property merging into, just square it off there and just leave that field? Is there a way that he can get from point A to that field, from his field? Has he got to go around?
To the agricultural field?
Yeah,
Yeah, he has to go around.
he has to go around.
Yeah, and that was a point brought up about machinery going through Drayton, and I talked to Marvin about it. He was really upset he couldn't make it tonight, but he would have no issue of driving his equipment around if that was a concern for council. But as many farmers in the area know now, like, it's pretty rare that a farmer does not have to go on the road to get to a field. Like, that seems logical to me. Like, it's got access, it's got a road access in my eyes. And I'm not an agricultural farmer, so I don't have equipment to farm it. It just made sense. And to speak to your question about the bush on that side, it's a completely different bush. It's very wet, and there's not a whole lot of value there. And it's a little kind of swampy. So that wasn't important to me. That's why the bush on the other side is quite the opposite. It's
Okay.
It's beautiful and valuable in my eyes.
I appreciate that. Councillor Woodham?
Thanks. Through you, Mayor Davidson, to you, since you sit on the county. I thought it was always my understanding that larger lots are not acceptable either. So like if we're going to do like option number 2, where it's almost 28 acres, is that not opening ourselves up to other things going awry?
You wouldn't be wrong when it comes to the county, and they're looking at the size of the lots, and Linda sat on the county for many, many years, that's even that 7-acre parcel would be considered large as a severance already. So asking for the 11.6 or for what was initially proposed, I would think would not be accepted either at the county level. However, stranger things have happened. I've seen different members of committee make decisions and that support it. So we have the option here as this council to make a recommendation that will be seen by the county committee on land division. So, and they often will They try to look at what the local townships and towns want as well, or what they'll accept as they make their decisions. So that does weigh in there as well. But absolutely, even the 2.86 hectares is large for a severance. Any further questions to either Linda or the applicant? All right, thank you. So, council, I'm going to read, the resolution's in front of us. Thank you, you can have a seat for now. Resolution's in front of us. So we see that the recommendation is not to support this consent application, and then there's 2 other configurations that we could support. Actually, so if you take that, there's three options here. We can take the one that was presented by the applicant, or we can take one or the other of what was presented by our planning department. So I need to hear from council on what way they're leaning here at this point in time. Councillor Ottens.
Yeah, I understand there's concerns with sizes, but I think that's more chopping farms up into like random 20 and 40 and 8-acre chunks. But when you're dealing with natural elements like this, I mean, we don't want forest cut down, so you want to preserve it. So if somebody wants to keep the whole thing as it is, initially I thought, yeah, I'll go with one of the other 2, but I think I'd be okay with it being the way the applicant has asked for it, because that keeps the most natural in his ownership.
Okay. Other comments, directions? I need to hear from everybody at some point, so. Councillor Woodham. You're next in line. Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this one. And I think I do agree with Councillor Ottens that if we maintain as much as the greenland, the stream, the allotted bush, all in one, no matter what, the farmer has to access that extra field differently. I don't know. I struggle to see any other option. Yeah, I think I would support the original.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. In this, reading through this over the weekend and now hearing from the applicant as well, I would also say that I would support the original application.
Councillor Martin.
I think it serves us well to have a proposal we can support versus sending something that we don't to land division, right? I'm not sure, both options that are proposed, like I understand the rationale for both, but I think the applicants kind of demonstrated that there might be some financial need to sever off the workable land to kind of make this application go, and then if we go with option one, kind of defeats the purpose of the green space that I assume he's looking to keep connected with the building lot, right? So, and then my idea didn't work either, clearly, right? Because then that severs, it keeps the one field in. So yeah, I don't know. Like I think the original application I'd be supportive of.
Okay, so then council, I'm going to read this again. I'm going to take out the option 1 and 2, and I'm going to take out the word not, and we'll do the resolution this way. Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Reid, that the Council of Township of Mapleton support consent application B22/25 as submitted on the lands as part lots 1 and 2, concession 12, and that the owner satisfy all the requirements and including outstanding taxes and all the requirements that are there. And then further, council authorizes the planning and development manager to file with Secretary of Treasury, Planning and Land Division Committee at the County of Wellington a letter of clearance of these conditions of the same. So, taking out the word not, take out the 2 options. Is this what council is going towards? Council Woodham.
Thank you, through Mayor Davidson. Just back to our planner, Linda Redmond then. How do you feel about this? Is this something then that you would be able to present, or do you shy away now and it's just council? I mean, a part of me also has to respect, and I think all of us have to respect, that we do have a planner, and the planner makes this report on our behalf with all the details. So
Council Woodham, I
What
understand
are we
your question,
missing?
but it's unfair to ask the Linda what she feels about this, because she has presented as a planner what
okay,
her
but she will
directions would
be able
be.
to support it going forward to county, to present it?
She doesn't present at county.
Okay, so it just goes?
This will go to county just the way it is, as what council has, and the Land Division Committee with county planners will go over this again.
Perfect, okay.
Okay? Councilor Martin.
Can you, Mr. Mayor, educate me on kind of next steps? So with land division, if this goes revised resolution or recommendation goes to land division, what options do land division have if they have an issue with the irregularity like you talked about earlier? Or like, could they obviously approve or defeat it, or could they also amend it?
They can amend it, they can approve it, they can defer it for them to come back with different options. So, our council, whatever we decide here, will go to county land division. The planners there will make the recommendations of the county, what the lot should look like. If it's not what was proposed, what we're accepting here as council today, they'll make a recommendation again. Our applicant will be there as well to talk with their planners as well as to the committee members at that, and the committee will ask the applicant questions, and they'll go over everything that we've just gone over, a little more detail. Being that the papers are right in front of you, and the committee members will be drawing lines and everything else on the paperwork, so that's how the process goes. Anything further? So do I need to read this again, or are we good? Okay? As in read again, or we're good? Okay. So take out the word not, take out the two options. Mr. Clerk, I know I'm going to scratch this up, and you're going to be fine with that. So all in favor of the resolution as amended? And opposed? That's carried. Moving on to 9.6.2. This is moved by Councilor Reid, second by Councilor Martin, that the Council of Township of Mapleton support consent application B4/25 as presented on lands described as part lots 9, concession 9, with the following conditions: that the owner satisfy all the requirements of the local municipality, financial and otherwise, for the proper and orderly development of the subject lands, including but not limited to the outstanding taxes, that payment be made of the fee of $505 for a letter of clearance, and that a copy of the deposit reference plan be submitted to the township, and further that council authorizes the planning and development manager to file with the Secretary of Treasury, Planning and Land Division Committee at the County of Wellington a letter of clearance of the same of completion. Comments or questions on this one from council? Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Moving on to 9.7, this is Public Works, and the first thing up is Ontario Clean Water Agency reports for Drayton and Moorfield drinking water. I know. Elvis, you can pull your collar down anytime.
Thank you, Mayor Davison and Council. As part of our legislative requirements, Don is here to present the reports that we will have Council approve hopefully tonight if they have any questions, and those will be posted on our website. So I'll let Don speak to those if there's any questions. Pretty straightforward.
Welcome, Don.
Thank you, Mayor. So thank you, Jamie. So you probably have had a chance to review the report, so free to take any questions.
Quick and easy, look at that.
Yeah.
It was an extensive report, Don, and I'm sure we dug into it with everything we had, all our vigor. Questions for Don on the report? Talking about our water systems and wastewater. Nothing? Come on, Councilor Woodham, there you go.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Davidson. When I was on council before, previously, Councillor Craven would always ask, is our water clean and safe to drink?
Love it. Thank you. So through you, Mayor, yes, it is. And actually, if you do read through the reports, you can also see that there's lots of room for growth as well for both Moorfield and Drayton systems. So.
Perfect. Our water is safe to drink. There we go. Thank you for asking that for Councillor Craven.
Yeah.
Anything further from council members? The report's very thorough, as usual. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
No
Great
questions.
to see everybody.
Resolution moved by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Reid, that Township Mapleton Council receive Public Works Report PW 2025-02 dated March 18, 2025 with respect to the Ontario Clean Water Agency 2024 annual reports and 2024 summary reports, and that council acknowledges these reports to satisfy legislative requirements. I'll ask a question. Anything else from council? All in favor? That's carried. Such a good report, there's no questions. Look at it. 9.7.2, we have the Public Works Capital Program. Jamie, you're back up at it.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Davison and Council, and thanks for that, Don. So we had a pretty busy year last year, and I got a couple people to thank, Patrick in the Finance Department for putting together all the numbers for me, and also the backhaul crew that put together the slide program, because I could never have done that. So Amy, Ali, and Wanda for helping me out with that. So I'll just go through it. A lot of numbers there. All of our projects pretty much come within budget, or a lot of them came under, which was very fortunate. And I can say the tenders this year for 2025 are very, very similar. They're really good numbers this year. Very surprising again. So if you just want to go through. So we got a new plow truck. It came a little bit late. I think it showed up in February. So this plow was used this winter. We also have another one coming for replacement in March or April. They're generally a little bit late. So we have another exact same unit coming. These two, this was our